You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for January 27th, 2023. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, America's home for not-so-special councils. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Yeah, you get 3. Not special
After
anymore.
you get 3, you get egg roll, right?
Yeah, well, you get a hoagie. You get hoagie with 6, but you stop being special once you're part of a set of triplets. You know,
Yeah.
After that, you just, what's your name again? Which one are you? I forget. Dad, how could you forget my birthday? Sorry, man. There's a lot of you.
And
so.
I'm sorry, but the job of special counsel, and this is the thing with Hunter Biden that people don't talk about on the right, especially. The job of special counsel, the job of the FBI investigator, the job of all of the prosecutors, etc., becomes extremely boring if the subject of investigation is entirely cooperative.
Right. That's, yeah.
Then it's just paperwork at that point.
It's cataloging.
And whether it's Mike Pence or Joe Biden being completely cooperative and saying, here is the documents, here's what I have, come search my house. It doesn't matter. That's just record keeping at that point, because there is no intent. And if there's no intent, then you don't have a crime there, really. So let's start with that. A lawyer for former Vice President Mike Pence discovered about a dozen documents marked as classified at Pence's Indiana home last week. And he has turned them over to the FBI. Multiple sources familiar with the matter told CNN.
Oh.
And I got to say, the entertainment this week was watching Mrs. Greenspan's wiring just go kaplooey.
Yeah, and that's some old fragile wiring to begin with.
Well, she can't do the both sides if it's a third side.
No.
And it did. It just neutralized this whole story about Biden's papers.
Well, and part of the prenup with Mrs. Greenspan was no 3-ways. And and here we are. She's like,
You've been saving that line up, haven't you?
For about a week. Give or take. I knew I'd unload it on somebody, and you're the lucky winner. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Elise Stefanik, via the wonderful Twitter account at ACYN, who does great video work and all kinds of good stuff over there. Stefanik explains how Mike Pence did nothing wrong and how Trump was treated unfairly, but also how Biden's actions are a national security threat. And the FBI has been weaponized against Trump and is engaged in a cover-up for Biden. And she ends with Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you and I were about to have a conversation about this, Driftglass, and I said, no, let's save it for the podcast.
Save it for the podcast.
So my questions are, how did this Ivy League educated person get to this point? How is Marge Green finding a way to tone down her image? And one way she's doing it, by the way, is nose contouring.
Right.
Someone has taught her makeup to make her nose look narrower and thinner. And her hair has keratin in it now. So post-divorce, she's got some consultant showing her how to do her face. You know, it's I hate to say it, it's kind of like Liz Cheney's person. You know,
it's gussied up, you know,
an image consultant to make you look TV ready.
Are there YouTube channels that will teach a person how to do these things?
I don't know. It's possible there might be some makeup contouring YouTubes out there. And then my third question was, is Kevin McCarthy as stupid as he looks?
And we thought about this. We gave it a big old think as we sat around going, what in the world are we going to talk about this boring work week where there's nothing going on in the news? I don't know. It's kind of cold out. Want to talk about the weather for an hour? Because we're from the Midwest. We can do that. Kevin McCarthy, my answer to Kevin McCarthy is a dumbass who grew up in California and in my fictional version on the beach, surfing on the beach. And that Kevin McCarthy doesn't understand much of anything except how tides work. and tides go in, tides go out, and all he's good at is surfing whatever wave comes his way.
I see.
To get him where he needs to go. So if it's the young guns, then that's what I'm doing. And if it's being cooperative, then that's what I'm doing. And if it's being a traitor, then that's what I'm doing. If it's saying that Donald Trump caused this and being really rigorous and shaking his finger in disapproval the day after the
for 5
insurrection.
minutes. Yeah.
And then getting the word from the boss that he didn't appreciate that and getting the spanking. And suddenly it's not Donald Trump's fault. So Kevin McCarthy is just a soulless, hollow suit floating on the tides, taking it just as long as he's in the general direction of more power. That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Marge Green, we got to do a little bit of science fiction university here.
Okay.
Sorry. I must invoke one of the dirtiest stories ever written by Kurt Vonnegut. And he wrote it for Harlan Ellison's Dangerous Visions anthology. And the title of the story is what keeps it off the shelves in your local public library. It's called The Big Space Fuck. And the big space fuck goes as follows. Earth is screwed. We're doomed. And the only hope of the human species surviving is by storing up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of dried jism, which is the last holy word in the English language because everyone swears all the time, and firing it in a rocket towards Andromeda. And the motto of the world and America at the time is "fuck you, Andromeda," because we're going to go fuck Andromeda and the human species will somehow survive. Because the planet has grown so polluted that the only things surviving in the Great Lakes are Clorox bottles and giant lamprey eels.
Oh, wow.
Everything else is dead. And before or as the rocket is launched, the lamprey eels start coming upon the land and killing people.
Oh, wow.
That is Marjorie Taylor Greene. The pollution on the right has gotten so bad, there's nothing left in the GOP but Clorox bottles and giant lamprey eels like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she has finally climbed out of the slime onto the land and is devouring what little is left of the old Republican Party, which was a fucked up party to begin with. So that's it. And that explains her. And Elise Stefanik is just a weather vane. Whichever way I need to do, whosever dick I need to suck, whatever I need to promise, whatever lie I need to tell, if I need to change my mind mid-sentence, I will do it. Because I understand the GOP base are, as the professional left has said on more than one occasion, reprogrammable meatbags. They will just do whatever they hear on Fox News. So I can change my mind. I can lie. I can invent shit. Doesn't matter. I will stay in power and grow in power because the base just wants to hear what it wants to hear. And these are the creatures that now run the House of Representatives because millions and millions and millions and tens of millions of American voters on the right are terrible, dumb, racist assholes who want this to happen and are angry that Donald Trump isn't president anymore. And this is their way of saying, fuck you, America, and sending a rocket ship up our ass. So,
well, and I think about, the clown bubble full of right-wing farts.
Yeah.
And they smell them all day and think they smell like rose petals.
Oh, yeah.
But this House of Representatives is a clown bubble.
Yeah. Well, I used to call it the bell jar full of Rush Limbaugh beer farts.
Rush Limbaugh's beer farts, right.
Yeah, and that's all they are. They've learned, their entire metabolism has adapted to only huffing that stuff. They can't survive in fresh air anymore. So they keep creating an inhospitable environment, a lethal environment for normal people to be in. And surprise, surprise, you get Marjorie Taylor Greenes when you do that.
Well, but that also explains how politically inept they are. Because to propose a 30-cent on the dollar sales tax and think, oh, we're grown-ups here, we can vote on this, it'll be fine. And Elizabeth Warren goes on Chris Hayes and Chris Hayes says, you guys are terrified that you're going to have to debate this, right? No, we're not.
Okay.
Making it that easy for Democrats because they are not outside of their bubble. They just don't see it.
I would propose a counterfactual for you. I don't disagree. Did Donald Trump promise to have health care for everyone for pennies on the dollar? And
it was going to be so easy.
Right. It was going to take a few weeks, send it up to Congress, come into office for just a few weeks, and then a few weeks after that, and then another month after that, and then a Friedman unit after that. But we're going to do it. It's easy. It's really easy to do. Did he promise the base he would do that?
Yes, he did.
Did he deliver?
No, he did not.
Do they care?
No, they do not.
So literally nothing anyone says on the right matters to the base.
Yeah.
They can propose 120% sales tax and then say, I never said that. Never said that.
Yeah.
And you're going to listen to fake news say that?
Yeah.
I really do mean they are reprogrammable meatbags. They are not sentient adults anymore. They will simply believe whatever the fuck comes out of Sean Hannity's mouth on any given night or Tucker Carlson's mouth. And if it reverses what they said yesterday, it doesn't matter to them anymore. So all of this, the clever strategizing about, now we have them. They've done an unpopular thing and we will exploit that. Well, you know what? If we had a liberal media, we could do that. If we had a mainstream media that gave a shit about democracy, that would work. But they're not going to talk about those things. They're going to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop and how everybody who puts a document in their pocket and walks out, whether it's an act of treason or a filing error, are all the same. And let's talk some more about Hunter Biden's document drop. So, I agree that that's the way it should be. Don't get me wrong. But I keep pondering why people keep underestimating the racism and stupidity and anger and resentment of the base. You were telling me a story about a liberal call-in, a conservative call-in.
No,
in
this
England,
was
right?
a conservative call-in on British TV.
Yeah.
And it was great to see it because from that angle, you can see more clearly, I think, the Rupert Murdoch brainwashing.
Right.
This woman phoned in to a British TV show, news show, and said, I can't stand the Prime Minister. He's done all these bad things. Of course, the Prime Minister of England is currently both a conservative and a brown person.
Right.
And so this is short circuiting her wiring. I don't like him. I don't like him. And then she said, but I am going to keep voting. She said this. I am going to keep voting for Tories.
Right.
Of course. And the hostess, unlike, Mrs. Greenspan, she pushed back and said, wait a minute. What is so wrong about the Liberal Party that you will never consider voting for them if you're unhappy with the way the policies are going on the right in the current state of the members of Parliament? Why are you not even considering voting for the other side? And she hemmed and she hawed, and I don't know. I don't like the Liberals because of the strikes, and these strikers are making more money than I'm making as a pensioner.
Right.
Which she had clearly heard on Sky News or some other Murdoch outlet.
Right. Exactly.
And the hostess said, I want you to have more money. Right. I want you to have a higher pension. But the idea that you're being punished by strikers, that the strikers are responsible for your low pension is nonsense.
Right.
And finally, it came down to the caller attacking the hostess, and the hostess very calmly saying, I know what newspapers you read.
Yeah.
And the woman replied, I don't read anything.
And that's when we laughed about Monty Python.
That's when we said, Monty Python has it right.
Yeah, they always have. These are actual real people that they actually knew and went to school with. And
every
they know
time a Monty Python member put a dress on, they were basing it on an actual person. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time they made fun of the twits or the clergy, these are people they knew growing up and went to church with. But that is the part of the equation that always gets skipped over, which is, finally we have Donald Trump literally telling his followers to storm the Capitol, and that's going to turn some people around. No, it won't. No, it won't.
Yeah.
You, not you, but this sort of inability on the part of many very good-natured people on the left to comprehend what fascism means. It means I don't care how bad the government is. I don't care how bad Mussolini is. I don't care how bad Hitler is. He makes me feel good. And those people over there are to blame for everything. As long as he's kicking their ass, I don't care what he does or what he says or how many times
or how much money he steals or from my pocket. Yeah. Well, what is the Sherlock Holmes thing where when you've exhausted every possibility, the simplest answer must be the answer?
Whatever remains must be the truth. You limit all the other possibilities. And the last 30, 40 years that's a great point, has been a long experiment in eliminating everything else it could possibly be. Is it really deficits? No. Is it really foreign policy? No. Is it really economic growth, which happens under Democrats and collapses under Republicans? No. Is it really handling the pandemic? No. What is it? It's racism. It's racism and a mindset of grievance and rage and paranoia and fear that they are simply, that's welded into their heads at this point, that they're
Well,
never going
and
to
I
get
was
rid
just
of.
going to say that the explanation for Kevin McCarthy and Elise Stefanik is money.
Sure.
Money and the mailing lists and
But the
the
money,
email and text phone number lists that WinRed has.
right. But the
And we
money,
don't know who owns that.
the money and the votes only come with the voters.
Right.
And the
exactly.
voters are
and
the
who
problem.
has the data on the voters?
Right.
Donald J. Trump has the data on the voters.
And how do you convince a Republican voter to stop being this way? You convince them with embalming fluid. And once they're gone and go to heaven and talk to Jesus, and Jesus says, what? I'm not saying kill them. I'm saying there used to be a saying that the only cure for presidential ambition was embalming fluid.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that in this life, you will never convince these people otherwise. Ever, 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 ever. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Stop pretending these people are reachable or reasonable or can be, you can work with them locally on local issues. And that's about it. The rest of there's a demographic, end point to this party. And that's what they're terrified of because, and that's where they get their money from. Scaring old white people into giving them money and votes. Yep. If there weren't old white people who were racist who would give them money and votes, there would be no Republican Party, or it would be a very different party. But instead, you get something like the Diamond Memorial Service.
Yeah. Did you watch that on Saturday, Drift Class?
I tried, Blue Gal. I really tried. And then I thought, I have so many better things to do with my life than to watch this freak show. So I just, I got the highlights. I got
from Hal Sparks. Thank you very much, Hal Sparks.
Right? Well, everybody had the highlights out.
Yeah.
And if you didn't see it or hear it or watch or listen to Hal Sparks, we're just going to recapitulate the fact that Diamond's memorial service shows why Donald Trump was never invited to John McCain's funeral or John Lewis's funeral or the Queen's funeral or really anybody's funeral where he'd have a speaking role. His entire speech consisted of first insulting Silk, quote, "I knew Diamond, but I don't know Silk at all. I just learned about Silk. You're fantastic," unquote. That was it. And then B, making the whole rest of the speech all about himself, because that's what you do at a memorial service, a solemn occasion like that. Silk used her moment in the spotlight to say that her sister was probably poisoned by coming into contact with vaccinated people. So, solemn occasion, let's push some conspiracy theories using my dead sister's funeral. Pastor Mark Burns, you might remember he had like 5 people in his church, but he loved Donald Trump, so he became a national figure, gave the opening prayer at the memorial service, quote, "Diamond is talking to Jesus, and she is saying, Jesus, please make sure that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States," because, unquote, because that's what you do in church. You pray to have Donald Trump restored to his rightful place at the head of the country. Mike Pillow was also there and also opened with a prayer, thanking God for delivering Donald Trump to the nation to fight this epic battle of good versus evil. And then they played a video of Diamond and Silk cursing out Joe Biden. And that was the memorial service. That was the solemn occasion of the passing of this woman and the celebration of her life by her friends and family. And nothing screams, holy shit, where the fuck were you people raised than that. I can think of no more solemn occasion than a wedding, a baptism, or a funeral. And they really showed their asses on this one. And they didn't even realize they were doing it. They thought this was the greatest thing that they'd ever done. And the rest of us looked at these people who had wandered out of this cave with shit in their hair going, oh my God, this is who they are. Yeah. And this is who they're going to be till the day they die.
Speaking of Black History, Drift Class, and the lead up to Black History Month starts next week. Jesse Waters of The Five.
Oh, yeah.
Who has had a habit this month in particular of saying, look, if Black people will just ask my permission, I might say yes.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about DC statehood that way. You guys got to behave if you want statehood, and you aren't behaving, so no. But this week, he demanded that Black history stop at 1960. This is regarding the Florida Advanced Placement African American History class canceled by Ron DeSantis.
Oh, yeah.
Who is doing nothing but running in a Republican primary for president. That's why he's doing everything he's doing in Florida. But as far as this AP African American history class is concerned, Jesse Waters had some nice things to say about it. He has read the syllabus, Drift Class.
Oh, okay. Well, then now my respect for him has grown by leaps and bounds.
And here's what he says. He has opinions. Quote, It's a very good course. 3/4 of it is very rigorous and very good. And this is very high level stuff. And then you get to about 1960 in there.
Uh-huh.
And it's all activism. It's
Oh,
all
God.
ideology. It's no
Mhm.
history. A good chunk is really good stuff. And then it goes into white supremacy, patriarchy, abolish the prisons, overthrow capitalism, queer theory, intersectionality. And you're like, whoa, we were going pretty good here. But now, boom, it hits you with all that stuff. So, yeah, that's Jesse Waters. He doesn't
Well,
understand that history for the civil rights movement actually began. And as I said, John Lewis did not drop down from heaven and give Jesse Waters a boot to the head.
no, and we have mentioned, I'm sure, on this very podcast a couple of dozen times. I know I've said it on my blog going back, God, 18 years now, 17, 18 years now. And certainly on the social media, that every conservative I know of any confidence in their intelligence whatsoever is a civil rights PhD right up until about 1964.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole history of America becomes yada, yada, yada. And then Reagan comes along and everything's great. And then yada, yada, yada. And Barack Obama ruined everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is not news that they really, really want to stand athwart history saying stop at around 1960.
Yep.
It's also the time when all of the Southern Democrats who were the party of the Klan began migrating over to the Republican Party and became Jesse Waters. So it's no surprise they really want to stop talking about history around that time. All of our Never Trump friends want to stop talking about history about then. They all want to talk about the glorious days of Bill Buckley and how he drove all those terrible birchers out of the conservative movement and then let them right back in through the side door. But we're going to talk about that. And then it's just a bunch of who knows what happened when. And then, oh my God, Trump ruined everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is that the period of time they're most ashamed of, their own party, is the period that covers their entire fucking adult life.
Yep.
All the time they had some agency over their decisions and could decide whether to work for Fox or not work for a fascist propaganda outfit. They chose always to do the worst thing and work for the worst people. And now they'd really appreciate it if we'd all just forget that and move on with our lives, which I'm not going to do. This is kind of a serious matter. Here's a quote from a mass shooting story that probably sounds very familiar to you. Quote, "Is there anything we could have done to even reverse a small part of Saturday's tragic shooting? The answer is sadly yes. Had the Clinton-era assault weapon ban never expired, it is likely that 9 of the bullets that struck victims would never have been fired." Unquote. But that's not from this week's mass shootings. You got a lot to choose from, and none of them are from this week. This is from 12 years ago, January 10th, 2011, when a madman went on a shooting spree in Tucson, Arizona, on January 8th, 2011, in which he shot and severely injured U.S. Representative Gabby Giffords and killed 6 people, including Chief U.S. District Court Judge John Roll, Gabe Zimmerman, a member of Giffords' staff, and a 9-year-old girl named Christina Taylor Green. The assailant shot and injured a total of 13 people, including one man who was injured while subduing him. The reason we talked about this on our podcast 12 years ago was obvious. It was a terrible tragedy. And we concluded our remarks 12 years ago with this quote from Bill Clinton's book, My Life, which we pulled from an NRA site, which was celebrating the defeat of gun-grabbing liberals and the rollback of the assault weapons ban. This is a little bit of history. Quote, "Just before the House vote on the crime bill, Speaker Foley and Majority Leader Dick Gebhardt made a last-ditch appeal to me to remove the assault weapons ban from the bill. They argued that many Democrats who represented closely divided districts had already defied the NRA once on the Brady bill. They said that if we made them walk the plank again on assault weapons ban, the overall bill might not pass, and that if it did, many Democrats who voted for it would not survive the election in November. Jack Brooks, the House Judiciary Committee chairman from Texas, told me the same thing. Jack was convinced that if we didn't drop the ban, the NRA would beat a lot of Democrats by terrifying gun owners. Foley, Gebhardt, and Brooks were right, and I was wrong. The price would be heavy casualties amongst defenders," unquote. And there's nothing new here except the names of the dead and the names of the shooters. It's just the same goddamn sad story over and over again. A handful of Republicans financed by the NRA holding the rest of the country hostage. Now, you brought up when we talked about this, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, well, the Nancy Pelosi documentary that her daughter did, and I believe it's on Netflix. Part of it is her whipping votes on healthcare.
Yep.
And we are in the process of doing a No Fair Remembering stuff. We just put one up this week on Tuesday about healthcare reform from Teddy Roosevelt to Mitt Romney, pre-2008. And we're going to do another one in 2 weeks on healthcare reform from 2008 onward. But Nancy Pelosi whipping votes for this bill and getting back from her members, some of her members, well, I'll lose my job. If I vote for Affordable Care Act, I'll lose my job. And she said, I don't care. Are we here to keep our jobs forever, or are we here to help the American people get health care? And I said to you, Driftglass, that's easy for her to say as a Californian in a safe seat who's going to be speaker forever, except she knew she wasn't going to be speaker forever.
That's right.
That with every congressperson who said, I'll lose my job, that is one less vote for her for speaker.
That's right.
And she didn't care. And she did lose the speakership.
Yes, she did. The reason the teabaggers swept to power was in large
2010,
part due to
exactly.
hysteria over the kill your grandma, Kenyan usurper, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare thing. Yeah.
Right. But she whipped those votes and said, this is not an optional vote. You have to vote for this.
Yep.
And then you said, and Lyndon Johnson with the Civil Rights Act, we're going to lose the South for a generation. He lost it for more than one generation. Worth it.
But it was worth it. They knew these were going to be tough votes that were going to cost them elections, cost members their seats, and they were worth it because banning assault weapons, even though the Bush administration comes along at the end of the sunset clause and just says, screw it, we're going to put all these weapons back on the street, and nobody stops them. And we haven't been able to mount any kind of credible opposition since, even though it cost Barack Obama and the Democratic Party tons of seats all over the place, governorships all over the place, Senate seats all over the place. And even though it cost the entire Democratic Party the South until this very day, every one of those votes is worth it. And so, there's a lot of loose talk about both sides. And I wish Democrats were fighters. Why don't they fight more?
Why don't Democrats fight more? And they have fought.
They have fought, and they continue to do so.
There have been instances where they really have fought and been willing to put their jobs on the line to do what's right. They have.
And if this were a much, much, much further left country, like I would like it to be, then taking them to task for these things would be easy because they're too much. Because the Democratic Party is, by global standards, a center-right party. But this country cannot support a left party that will give me everything I want. I wish they do. We try to push them in that direction. But all of these tough votes cost them dearly, and they took them anyway, knowing that it was going to cost them because it was the right thing to do.
It's like Driftglass. I got to tell you, Californians get a choice between Adam Schiff and Katie Porter for Senate. God.
How do they live with themselves? Really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
What a sad state of affairs. Speaking of congressional courage, Driftglass.
Yeah.
The courage on the other side is, we're going to stand really firm and cut Social Security.
Yeah.
The Washington Post writes, quote, in a pledge to cut spending, House Republicans have considered proposals targeting Social Security, Medicare, and other programs, something that is deeply unpopular.
Really?
Yeah, even among Republicans. The Republicans kind of wake up. You talk about reprogrammable meatbag. Yeah. But if you talk about cutting Social Security, how am I going to send a check to Marjorie Taylor Greene if I don't have my Social Security?
You're not going to cut my Social Security.
Exactly.
Those people,
I paid into that my whole life, and therefore, blah, blah, blah.
Greedy welfare moochers, you're going to cut them, right? But not me. Not me. I'm your buddy, right? I'm your pal. Yeah, sure. No, you'll be fine.
But just 17% of Americans in the Economist YouGov poll said they supported Congress reducing spending on Social Security and Medicare. 70% opposed this. I think that 17% is Joe Scarborough and the panel around the table.
Oh, Joe, you're so right.
You're so
Joe's
right,
so right.
right.
Deficits, Joe. Deficits are a big deal. And I'm sure the American people are behind you, Joe.
No.
Yeah.
A meager 22% of Republicans supported cutting Social Security and Medicare spending, along with even fewer Democrats and independents, unquote. As I said, in our latest No Fair Remembering Stuff episode, we detail the long history of Republicans trying over and over again to kill Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, basically any program that helps the poor and middle class. Now, again, let me explain the schedule to you. This week, there's a No Fair Remembering Stuff up about healthcare. Next week, as we will do the last Tuesday of every month, we are going to have a Science Fiction University up at sciencefictionuniversity.com. That doesn't go on our Professional Left podcast stream. You have to subscribe to Science Fiction University.
We'll tweet it and we'll put it on our blog.
We will. It'll be up there. And I did talk to Tammy. We agreed that it should just go on the YouTube channel, just like a normal podcast. So
absolutely,
we'll do it that way. But we're going to do Science Fiction University, and it's a good one. And then the following week, we will follow up with No Fair Remembering Stuff Healthcare Part 2. And that's really about Obamacare and the endless 60-plus votes against Obamacare that the Republicans tried to do.
40 plus.
Including the beer blast in the Rose Garden in 2017. So you'll enjoy that one. And Driftglass, I think people really should spend more time reading your blog.
I couldn't agree more. There's a PayPal button on my blog, and you should definitely visit that first and then backtrack into the articles. I did want to mention that if you factor in if you factor in Science Fiction University, plus this little podcast of ours here we're doing right now, we have done over 700 podcasts in the last 13 years.
And we're coming up in 10 weeks. We'll have episode 700 of this show.
Podcast.
Yeah.
But collectively, we've done over 700 episodes of podcast. And, I think it's, now that we've fixed everything, I think it's time to start thinking about, winding the whole thing down.
He's kidding.
He's in good hands. I got to say, no, that's all bullshit. Don't listen to me there. But I was listening to Joe Biden, my President Joe Biden, on television just a little while ago, talking about basically fuck the MAGA Republicans. They want to screw everything up. As long as I'm alive and sitting at this desk on my watch, I'm not going to let them do it. I'm going to veto everything they send me that's destructive. And by the way,
they can't cut Social Security and Medicare.
No,
screw it. They can't.
And by the way, manufacturing is awesome. And we spent there's 700,000 construction projects going on around this country, thanks to the bill I passed, the Democrats passed. So, I take hope where I can find it. And the reason you should read my blog is I'm not going to read the entire post because that is just redundant. But I have a post when Charlie met Andy. One of the glorious things about watching the Never Trumpers over time, and I'm referring to people who are not just Never Trumpers, but never conservative or whatever the hell that means, is that eventually someone like Andrew Sullivan gets so ridiculous in his obsession with both siderisms that recent arrivals to the Never Trump, Never Conservative movement, like Charlie Sykes, make fun of them for being nitwits. Like, can you believe this idiotic thing that Andrew Sullivan said that basically is what I believe, but I'm not going to say I believed it?
But that's your turf, Driftglass.
Well, that's my corner. Say the fuck off my corner.
Andrew Sullivan says is something you've been writing for years. Years. And I got, as I said a long time ago, I did get emails from Andrew Sullivan way back when I was on Yahoo email. Oh, yeah.
Asking me why I was attacking him personally. Why can't we be buddies? And I'm like, well, first of all, he and I share an award. We both were winners of the last weblog award ever given. And he sent me an email going, dude, why are you coming after me so personal, man? What's up with that? And I said, dude, you mean like you go after so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so personally? You mean like that? I mean, why can you dish it out but not take it? No pun intended, because your blog is called The Dish. And that's the last I ever heard from Andrew Sullivan, because he didn't like it when someone criticized him and using the same tone.
Someone remembered exactly what he was saying. Yes.
He used on other people. And doesn't like people remembering that he called liberals a potential fifth column for terrorists in this country. But Andrew Sullivan has lost his mind. And now he basically is a screaming hysteric who shows up on Bill Maher's show every now and then talking about Glenn Greenwald and talking about how the woke overlords on the left. And And if only the right is so close to being awesome, all they have to do is actually meet people's needs and start talking more like Barack Obama. And even Charlie Sykes had to say, "Oh, come on, man. Come on. Is this some combination of mushrooms and pot and just staying in your DC condo and peeking out the window and the voices in your head? Because this is just ridiculous." Except, Andrew Sullivan's "I'm quitting conservatism forever. I can no longer abide being part of this movement" speech from 2009 is virtually identical to every Never-Trumper speech from 2015, 16, and 17.
Yeah.
"I'm quitting the Republican Party. I can no longer abide, blah, blah, blah." They all end up in the same place. But since Sykes is like 13 years behind Sullivan, he thinks Andrew Sullivan sounds ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, Sykes
and they're all dancing on your street corner.
No, they all desperately want to live the life of the liberal blogger, where you can just bash the crap out of Andrew Sullivan because he deserves it and get away with it, but they don't want to give up their conservative credentials.
They don't want to give up their paycheck.
No, well, if as I wrote,
the life of a liberal blogger does not come with a paycheck, Drift Glass. I don't know if you knew that.
It's amazing. Are you kidding me? The money, the approbation. Mostly, I live for the respect and esteem of the American political establishment. Who congratulate us literally on a daily basis of, "God damn, you people
they
write all along."
They steal from you on a daily basis.
No, they write me notes saying, "God, how did you know? How did you and Digby and Google know so many decades in advance?"
All right, time out.
Anyway,
go read Drift Glass's blog. He calls out Charlie Sykes quite well.
Oh, it's funny. It's just
Get
funny.
off my corner.
Get off my corner. This is my thing. Quit stealing my stuff, asshole.
Quit stealing my stuff.
Yeah. Or credit me. Have me on your weird
link
blog.
Me. That'd be nice.
That'd be nice. No. One last thing. The life of the liberal blogger is intense. That's all. It's intense, just like Repo Man.
Come on, we got to get your wife's podcast out of this bad area. Let's do a news roundup. Joe Manchin decided the both-siderist media cannon needed more ammo, so he jumped right into the middle of the classified document story on Chuck Todd's show. He also said he wouldn't rule out a presidential bid.
What a hero that man. We need to be saved by Joe fucking Manchin. The CEO of Newsmax is not happy about being canceled by DirecTV. Quote, "They got rid of OAN. Now they got rid of Newsmax. Only Fox News is left. Vice, which is pro-Antifa, they get a fee. We're fighting back. President Trump has called for a boycott of AT&T and DirecTV. Reminder, AT&T is a notoriously right-wing company." Now,
friend of the pod, Hal Sparks, notes for the record that Newsmax got dumped because you can view all of their programming on Rumble or YouTube for free. So it is completely unprofitable to have them as a channel when DirecTV could sell that space to a real moneymaker, like infomercials or a channel that just runs old game shows. And Newsmax wanted to charge a carriage fee to AT&T, basically getting AT&T to subsidize their right-wing BS.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Newsmax streams on Roku and other outlets for free. So yeah, AT&T said no, and that's what happens in a free market capitalist economy. Socialism for me, but not for you. Same as it always was. P.S. I want to note in particular that outrage on behalf of Newsmax is the GOP talking point of the week. Censorship, censorship, censorship. And we have to have hearings, according to Rick Scott.
Right.
And I loved your comment that we can't have M&Ms all the time.
No, you can't have M&Ms every day, Blue Gal. You got to mix it up. Or else technically it's not a salad. Oh. We should bring that sponsor back, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should.
There is a huge news story that too many outlets are ignoring. Ex-FBI counterintelligence head arrested for money laundering, taking bribes, etc. Charles McGonagall, the counterintelligence chief of the New York FBI office until 2018, apparently sold out for the low price of $250,000 before going to work for the Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska in violation of U.S. sanctions. And Oleg Deripaska was the person he was supposed to be investigating when he was working at the FBI office. There is a very big story here that almost no one's reporting in depth because, Biden's documents and Hunter Biden's laptop. And we probably should plug Keith Olbermann because he really did devote an entire show just to this one incident, this one news story, which is huge.
The Washington Post is laying off journalists supposedly out of economic necessity. Consider that in 2021, Jeff Bezos paid twice as much to build a new yacht, $500 million, as he shelled out to buy the Washington Post. Also, the boat costs $50 million a year to maintain. The layoff announcements dropped one after another, accelerating throughout the second half of 2022. Amazon began laying off what will be 18,000 employees. Lyft, the rideshare company, said it would dismiss 700 of its workers, or 13% of its staff. The technology giants Meta and Twitter announced that they were cutting thousands of employees.
But Meta had good news to announce this week, in that it would be reinstating, that's not good news at all, former President Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts in coming weeks, following a 2-year suspension, according to Nick Clegg, the company's president of global affairs. The reason Trump isn't back on Twitter yet is he has an exclusive agreement with Truth Social that runs through June, and he wouldn't want to break Devin Nunes' heart.
Aw,
poor Devin.
We got to quote Charlie Wartzel of The Atlantic. He wrote, Trump and Facebook are two things that used to be popular, but that most people are tired of, and whose popularity is kept afloat by internet-addled, aging rage posters. They deserve each other. But I don't know if any of this matters as much as it did in 2021.
Yeah. The State Department will now allow private citizens to financially sponsor the resettlement of refugees in the United States. The pilot program, called Welcome Corps, will initially enlist 10,000 Americans who will be able to sponsor up to 5,000 refugees.
A federal judge declined to dismiss the contempt of Congress charges against Peter Navarro for defying a subpoena from the January 6th committee. Aw, don't they know who he is?
Don't they know who he is? Yeah, they do. They know his name and his address because that's where they delivered the subpoena to.
Oh, yeah. I think they actually subpoenaed Peter Navarro at the airport, didn't they? And put cuffs on him and stuff like that. I think they did.
I hope so. That's
I hope they did it in public.
Why don't people send me that video? I mean...
All right.
The Biden administration will send 31 M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine following an agreement with Germany to deliver 14 of its Leopard 2 tanks. The tanks are coming.
The tanks are coming. The tanks are coming. Kevin McCarthy officially allowed Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell to have a lot of TV time this week. Oh, that's not what they did. Yeah.
Bless his heart. Yeah.
He officially denied Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell seats on the House Intelligence Committee. McCarthy accused Adam Schiff of lying when he served as chairman of the panel and, quote, severely undermined its primary national security and oversight missions, ultimately leaving our nation less safe, unquote. McCarthy also argued that Swalwell was unfit to serve on the committee because he was targeted by a suspected Chinese spy as part of an influence campaign in 2014. This is where McCarthy is just flat out slandering Eric Swalwell.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. There's no evidence of wrongdoing in relation to the allegation against Swalwell. Nevertheless, McCarthy said he made the decision, quote, because integrity matters to me, unquote.
Well, thank God the Supreme Court is safe from this kind of political bullshit. Oh, wait. No, I stand corrected. It's official. The Supreme Court's investigation into the Supreme Court's leak of the Dobbs deliberation could not find who at the Supreme Court did the deed. Shocking news. It's widely rumored among Midwestern bloggers of a certain kind that it was Sam Alito all along.
It was Sam Alito.
It's just rumors. It's just rumor. We're passing along what we know to you under this blog heading. But since justices were not questioned under oath, no one will ever know.
No one will ever know.
I'm checking out Twitter.
Yeah.
And apparently a large New York Times article just dropped about the Durham Report. Can I read you just 2 paragraphs?
Yeah, sure.
Just a couple of paragraphs. This is from today. This is from, just a couple of hours ago. And everybody's David Frum on Twitter. I'm sure Adam Parkomenko on Twitter. All the usual suspects. Greg Sargent are all leading with holy crap, my gosh. A couple of paragraphs. But after almost 4 years, far longer than the Russia investigation itself, Mr. Durham's work is coming to an end without uncovering anything like the deep state plot alleged by Mr. Trump and suspected by Mr. Barr. Moreover, a months-long review by the New York Times found that the main thrust of the Durham inquiry was marked by some of the very same flaws, including a strained justification for opening it and its role in fueling partisan conspiracy theories that would never be charged in court that the Trump allies claimed characterized the Russia investigation. It was
a scam.
Every accusation is a confession. Yeah, this guy should be run out of the bar on a rail.
Yeah, everyone associated he should be disbarred.
Yep. Anyway, that just happened just now. So now
I got to go find out what my TV husband says about this.
Oh, well, I'm sure his hair is standing on end, Blue Gal. So.
I'm sure it is too. Thank you for listening to all our silly business and news. Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. But this week's Internet Kitty is a Portuguese Pandango dog named Maya Papaya. In this photo, Maya is riding in her apartment building's elevator, and she is a good elevator dog. And she's wearing her raincoat because it's cold outside, cold and wet. So, she has to wear her raincoat. And of course, Maya Papaya eats freshly poured pet food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Direct, your dog will sit in the elevator and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And you can visit Maya Papaya, the Portuguese Pandango dog, at our Facebook page or website. And you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, Postal Unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. #FireToJoy. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our full-time job. A number of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution. You know what? You can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. We've got PayPal, postal address information, Patreon links. All of it is there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to. Tell them we've got almost 700 episodes, and it's a great show. And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitty's own in-house investigation into who ate the pine needles from the Christmas wreath and then threw them up on the living room rug has hit a dead end.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2023 DGBG Productions.